We've worked with string variables that contain a string data element, and that string element is an instance of the string class. We've talked about classes as having properties and methods, and in this unit we want to explore some of those methods and properties that will allow us to manipulate that string. I'm in the learn.microsoft.com help system, and I've gone to the string area for .NET 8. And notice that up here at the top I can choose to look at the code for C# or VB or F# or C++. So make sure you choose the VB one. So I'm going to scroll down through this for the string class. And we can see there are constructors, and we'll talk about constructors when we get more into the object-oriented portion of this class in creating our own classes. We have a field here of empty. I'm going to ignore that for now, but here's our properties. There's only two properties to the string class. We're going to really just focus on this one, which is the length. The length, it says, gets the number of characters in the current string. So we can use the length property of a string object or string instance to determine how many characters there are. Then there's a whole bunch of methods here. And you'll see some that are named the same, such as compare to. We have compare to object and compare to string. And that's called overloading. Again, we'll talk about that more down the road. But as I mentioned, there's a whole lot of methods here, more than we will probably ever need to use. But this is good documentation to go through and see what the possibilities are. So there's a few that we're going to use in this course pretty regularly. As I mentioned, we'll use the length property and then several of the methods that we'll use. Now remember, methods have parentheses after them. That's how we can notice that it is a method. It does something or returns something. So we have methods for returning the location of a substring in the string called index of. And we'll look at all these in a little bit more depth in subsequent videos. And substring allows us to extract part of a string. We can convert a string to all lowercase, all uppercase. We can trim off any spaces at the beginning or the end of the string. We can do a trim end, remove just the trailing spaces, or trim start, remove just the leading spaces. We can also determine if a string ends with a particular sequence of characters or starts with a particular sequence of characters. We can get a Boolean values whether a string contains another substring. We can insert characters into a string or remove characters from the string. We can also replace characters in the string. We can determine if a string is null or empty, or if a string is null or white space. Now there's the compare to and the compare methods as part of the string class. I will tell you I have found those to not work in the most recent version of Visual Basic with .NET 8. So I'm going to ignore those, but I show them here because they are in the class documentation, but for whatever reason they seem to always return a -1. And those work in the way of returning a -1 if the first string comes before the second string, a 0th or the same, or a +1 if the second string is less than the first string. And then there's another method here called split that we will look at down the road when we get to arrays. So for now we'll ignore split, but it becomes a very important method down the road. Let's take a look at the length property and a few of the methods, and we'll go into more depth in the subsequent videos. But I'm going to dim a variable called ABC to contain a string and assign to that the value of the word Phoenix. And then I want to take ABC and get the length of it, so the length property, and we know this is a property rather than a method because there's no parentheses after length. ABC.length is the number of characters. Convert that to a string because that is an integer value. Convert it to a string and put that into LBL output.text, and our value there that would be shown would be 7. There are 7 characters in the word Phoenix. Then LBL output.text equals ABC.toUpper. So I'm going to convert ABC to all uppercase. That's a string method that returns a string, the string of all uppercase. We get Phoenix in all uppercase letters. Next one, LBL output.text equals ABC.indexOf. And I'm searching here for the sequence of lowercase ni. Now, if you look up here in the top right, we'll see that each letter occupies an index location. And we start with an index numbered as 0. So most things in computing, we start counting with 0. So looking for the NI, you can see this here, that it is character 4 and 5, or indices 4 and 5. It's going to return the first index value where it finds it. That is the 4. So we convert, it's an integer value, we're going to convert it to a string. We'll look at index of in the next video. It becomes a very important part of working with strings. LBL output.text equals abc.substring 4. So here with substring, I'm going to character 4, that's the N, and I'm going to extract everything from that to the end of the string. So it's going to show NIX. And then our last one here, LBL output.text equals abc.replace. We're going to replace the X with the letters CIAN, and so now rather than Phoenix, the output is Phoenician. So this is a brief overview of how we can manipulate and work with strings. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the Programming Practicum playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos I create, you can click my picture in the top right to subscribe to the channel.